from the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio. This is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in London, and we've had all the end-of-season parties here, glitzy dinners with all the cricketers. I'm doing something altogether more earthy next week, though. I'm afraid I won't be with you for Stumped because I'm going to be on safari in Africa. I can't wait. I'll be stroking lions. Well, maybe not getting that close, but certainly something different from the last few months of all the cricket.
And to recover from the partying, no doubt, Alison. I'm Charu Sharma for All India Radio back in Bangalore, home that is, but only for a few hours more as I continue to travel for the closing stages of the Pro Kabaddi League. Another season almost done and dusted. But of course, Indian cricket is going along quite swimmingly, isn't it, right now, at home for both men and the women.
And I'm Geoff Lemon for the ABC in Melbourne, where spring is slowly trending towards summer, and as one cricket season ends, another begins.
It's just a continual cycle, isn't it, Geoff? It's rather like the cycle of life. It never stops, but we wouldn't have it any other way. Good to have you both along. Charu, I feel like I haven't spoken to you for a little while, so it's nice to have you with us.
A while.
Yep, indeed. Well, we're going to start today with a new coaching appointment, because that of the world champion men's side, England. The team's bowling coach, Chris Silverwood, has been named as the new head coach. He succeeds Trevor Bayliss. Now, Silverwood, of course, worked under Bayliss and previously coached Essex to the county championship title in 2017. Now, he was always in the reckoning, but he didn't appear to be first choice when the ECB were also interviewing the former India and South Africa coach, Gary Kirsten. Now, I caught up with Silverwood earlier this week, and given the previous coach, Trevor Bayliss, had a very laid-back approach, and Andy Flower before that was famously meticulous, I asked him what his coaching style would be.
To be honest, I think the one thing that the players will be after is consistency in who I am. So from a personal point of view, obviously apart from having to step back a little bit as head coach, that I'll be the same person. They need to know what they're getting every day when I turn up. And I mean, the one thing I am is sort of very well planned. I like to know what's going on. Methodical in what I do, so I'll bring some of that structure behind the scenes. But in a similar way, it'll still be all about giving the players the onus of developing and moving forward and giving them responsibility on their own game, but within a structure that allows them to do that freely and with no fear.
So as much a sort of focus on the person development as the player, would you say?
I would, yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, one of the things that sort of really pleases me is seeing people go out there and try their hardest and be successful, and knowing that you've just played just a little bit of part in that. When they come off smiling, that makes me smile as well. So if we can develop them as cricketers and as people, to me, we're doing his job. And
Trevor Bayliss was very clearly tasked almost with winning the World Cup. England have done that now. Does that mean for you a greater focus is going to be on the Test arena?
Yeah, there'll be more focus on the Test arena without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, winning in Australia in 2 years' time will be a priority. So a lot of the things we do will be built towards that. A lot of the planning we do, the planning has already started for that. I mean, what do we need to do now that will affect us in 2 years' time? And what structure do we need in place so we can do that? And what personnel do we need in place? So that has already started. So we want to win the Ashes back. So, I mean, Joe will get every bit of support we can give him to allow him to do that.
What are the key pillars going to be in order to win those Ashes back? I know that Ashley Giles, the England director of cricket, said that in your interview you had very detailed thoughts. So what would be the key pillars for you?
Well, I mean, sort of in a nutshell, really, it will be obviously to galvanise a batting lineup that can bat for long periods of time.
How do you do that?
Well,
$1 million question.
Yeah, it is a $1 million question. It will be making sure we've got the right people in the right places and then giving them opportunity to be successful in those places. And just working from there, but creating an environment where actually they can learn from what they're doing and the situations they're in. And like I said, just making sure we have the right people in the right places to do that. And then from a bowling perspective the one thing that I was impressed with the Australian attack this summer is how relentless they were. I mean, you look at Hazelwood, Cummins, Pattinson, people like that, they relentlessly hit the top of off, and our batsmen got very little to hit. So can we put that discipline into our bowling attack before we go out there? And I think if we do, we'll cause them a lot of problems, even on their wickets. So that's, just a couple of examples of what we'll be trying to do.
And next year we'll bring a tour of India as well, which is another huge frontier to conquer, if you like. So there's got to also be a focus on building a strong cohort of spinners and batsmen who can play spin.
Absolutely. I mean, we will look at each tour individually and see, what is it that's going to make us successful out there? What makes a home team successful out there? And take lessons from that really and put things into place now. And that one of them will be building the cohort of spinners. Plans are being put in place now to make that happen. We'll try and get them as much cricket as we can, but we'll allow them to build and thrive. And equally, the batsmen to play against them as well. We need to score runs and we need to bat for long periods of time. So if we can do that, then obviously it gives the bowlers a chance to bowl them out.
Final thought. I didn't know this about you, Chris, but I read the other day that you're a black belt in karate. Is this true?
Oh, many moons ago.
Do you mean you haven't been keeping it up?
No, I'm too old for that now.
Oh, that's disappointing because Justin Langer, your Australian counterpart, is also a black belt. So we wondered whether perhaps, a karate contest featured in your plan to Ashley Giles to win back the Ashes.
Oh, can you imagine that? It's something I did when I was young. It was brilliant. I mean, it gave me the discipline really to sort of really spilled into the rest of my life, into my cricket and to everything else I've done. And also that awareness of sort of your body and how you move and stuff like that. So, do you know what? There's a lot of great experiences came out of karate and what have stood me in good stead, specifically from a discipline point of view. But no, it's a long, long time ago, is that now?
I was going to say, woe betide anyone who turns up late for training. Chris, it's great to speak to you. Best of luck. Look forward to seeing you round and about with the team.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
So Chris Silverwood, New England coach, elevated from bowling coach and karate black belt. He could be a bit of a contest, though, for Justin Langer. Geoff, don't you reckon, on that front?
Well, I'd like to see what might happen. Justin Langer has that diminutive balance base where he might be able to use that to his advantage against a taller opponent. But, Silverwood would have the reach, so it'd be an intriguing contest.
I think Langer would be a fast mover. On a serious note, into my mind, I think England have appointed a man full of ambition. And yes, there are those who say, but hang on, he doesn't have international experience. So everyone's got to get their first head coach's job on the international scene at some point, and he certainly earned the respect from players and showed in the interview that he was hungry for it and full of ideas. Charu, given that Gary Kirsten was interviewed for the role as well, was there any level of surprise from you about the direction they ultimately went in?
Well, no. But what's nice is that finally the secret is out. He didn't have a black belt, Gary. I really think that it's perhaps the better choice because he's obviously very keen, very hungry, and the whole concept of continuation usually is good for a team when they're doing well enough. If England was suffering badly with their cricket, then maybe a change would have helped at the top, at the coach level. But they haven't been doing too badly. I mean, they won the World Cup. I mean, there's a fair amount of, bonhomie in the team. I'm sure they're reasonably happy. And to keep that going, continuity is good. Familiarity with the players is good, rather than somebody new coming in and kind of reinventing a few of the wheels. But a couple of key things that Silverwood said. One, of course, more on influencing the environment and keeping the squad happy. I think that is the key for any coach, really, because, skills on the day. He mentioned that, the Australian bowlers made it very tough for the English batsmen by keeping a very consistent line and so on and so forth, which international cricketer doesn't know what to do. Bowlers want to bowl top of off and batsmen want to score 500 not out every time, but it doesn't happen. So, skill-wise, you can only add that much as a coach. But environment-wise and keeping the squad happy and well-oiled, if he can manage to do that, and he sounds pretty determined, then he's the man for the job.
Geoff, having watched the men's Ashes closely, do you sense, though, that the Test side does need some new ideas?
Well, that's the thing. I think they do need to reinvent a few wheels in that Test team.
Okay.
I suppose it depends which emphasis you think that the New England coach needs to have foremost. They've got a T20 World Cup in a year's time, and they would love to add that to the 50-over World Cup and probably have the personnel to challenge for that pretty strongly, given that Owen Morgan will stay on and will lead that shorter format of the game. But do they want to change the way that they do things in Test cricket. Silverwood has said that that's a focus, but they've been abject in Test cricket, to be frank, for a good couple of years on the batting side of things. Now, Chris Silverwood's done a good job as a bowling coach. England bowled really well during the Ashes, but that's not the problem. Can a good bowling coach fix the batting? And that's where I think this is a debatable choice, because if you have someone like Gary Kirsten, the thing that he knows about is how to bat for a long period of time and how to use relatively limited gifts and get absolutely the most out of them. So that's what they've passed up on, and their reasons for doing that may come out in time, but we never really get the full story on these things.
Well, you can have your say on Chris Silverwood's appointment as England coach, or any other topics that have piqued your interest. If you go onto our Twitter feed, you can tweet us at BBCWS Sport using the hashtag BBC Stumped. And don't forget, you can download Stumped every week wherever you get your podcasts from. Just search for BBC Stumped.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on All India Radio.
Well, let's finish up with a look at India, because they took a 1-0 lead into this week's second test in Pune after beating South Africa by 203 runs in the first test. Charu, we talked about Rohit Sharma last week. Well, I wasn't here for last week's, but you talked about Rohit Sharma after his first innings century, and he went on to become the first batsman to score twin hundreds in his maiden test as an opener, underlining his talent, isn't he?
Oh, without question. I mean, his talent was there for all to appreciate all these years. It's just one of those funny things where it hadn't quite translated onto the test match arena. Thankfully, it's there now, and he's going to be persisted with for a very long time, because he has that kind of a very special talent. But we talked about that last week. So a few others, though, doing very well for India. I mean, let's not forget Mayank Agarwal, who got a double century, and, of course, is doing rather well in this test match as well, the second one. So he was, I'm not saying a fine, but he did really well. This test series has given a fresh lease of life to quite a few others. I mean, Ravindra Jadeja did rather well as an all-round player with his left-arm spin as well. Ashwin's got a new lease of life and is the joint fastest to 350 wickets in the world, along with Murli. So that's very special too, considering he hasn't really been playing that regularly of late. And of course, Mohammad Shami came in with that fifer in the last innings. But we've got to say that the pitch for the fourth innings was just not quite the best at that point of time. It was crumbling a bit. I remember Temba Babuma getting out to a ball that barely got up about 8-10 inches. So, yeah, there's a bit of the pitch as well that played its part. But the Indians are certainly doing very well. The South Africans we always knew were going to be in trouble, but they competed pretty well in the first innings of the first test, but not quite thereafter. So, yeah, not just Rohit Sharma, but this test match series with South Africa has provided fresh impetus to the careers of at least 3 or 4 other Indians, which is good, because you like that kind of choice, don't you?
Geoff, this series is something of a 3-round heavyweight contest. What have you made of round one?
Well, after South Africa had a very miserable tour last time they visited India, I was interested to see how they would bounce back. And I was impressed in the first innings with the way that Dean Elgar played. And, Quinton de Kock was able to make 100, but it was really only after Elgar had done a lot of the early spade work. He's such a determined player. He's never going to be at the top of anyone's list of those elegant left-handers, but he's just so stubborn. He's had issues against off-spin in the past, but he worked really, really hard to make sure that he didn't get out to off-spin. And, the way that he was able to put together an innings that was absolutely falling apart and make sure that South Africa did at least fight in their first innings after they could have been completely deflated. I thought that was really impressive, as impressive as that sort of whole team performance was from India to get the big win in the end.
Something which caught my eye in the lead-up to the second test match is Virat Kohli's comments on the ICC Test Championship and the way the points worked, saying that if he was to have designed the points table, he would have been given double points for an away test win. I mean, I know we don't want to make it even more complicated than it already is. I know we're going to try and re-explain it, but yeah, doubling the points. I mean, away wins do really, mean so much, don't they?
They're certainly very rare, so, it might not necessarily throw the table out that much if you had double points for an away win. There might be the odd easy away win in the world, but there aren't really many in this day and age. So, look, it's not the worst suggestion, but as you say, things are probably confusing enough as they are.
I know it's not the mandate today to go into that, but wins against higher-ranked teams, away wins, all of that has to count. Otherwise, it's not a true representation of your ability.
Well, it's straight points, I'm afraid, at the moment. Straight points. Now, Sri Lanka have whitewashed Pakistan 3-0 in the international T20s they were playing, which is sort of notable for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the significance of the result, because it was a weakened Sri Lankan side, but also the security doubts that have always swirled around Pakistan. This tour went off without incident, and we've got the Sri Lankan coach, Rumesh Ratnayaka, heaping praise on the hospitality that they've been shown in Pakistan as well. Charu, this is a really positive sign for international cricket in the country, isn't it?
Without question. I mean, they've been suffering for years. And the fact that there's not even a single security incident, I think, is fantastic. I'm really happy that there's no incident. I'm glad that Pakistan did a little bit of winning, but, I mean, the Sri Lankan whitewash here is sad only for Pakistan not winning. But otherwise, the victory is for Pakistan cricket or their establishment to be hosting a series without any security problem. So in that sense, yeah, I do hope it opens doors for other teams to come there without feeling any threat.
It's really quite moving as a moment, to see Sri Lanka go back there. Obviously, they're the team that got attacked in 2009 and were very fortunate not to have players killed, had players badly injured on that tour. So for a Sri Lankan team to go back, it seems so significant, to have a major team go on tour. I know Zimbabwe were convinced to tour a few years ago, but there seemed to be a fair bit of financial consideration in that as well. So for Sri Lanka to go back to play, for Pakistan fans to be able to see their team turn out, they did win those 2 ODIs. They've lost the 3 T20s, which didn't go down too well at home. But, the ramifications of that might not be long lasting. That could be a blip, given that it would have been pretty emotional for those players showing out at home, and after so long of being on the road, being exiles basically in the UAE. So it's a hugely significant thing that's happened this last couple of weeks.
And you can probably detect, between the two countries, the fact that Sri Lanka themselves suffered a terrorist attack earlier this year. It wasn't cricket focused. However, it would have raised questions and fears of other cricket nations potentially going there. So for Sri Lanka to say, we're going to extend that goodwill to Pakistan, they would hope that sort of gesture is reciprocated in terms of saying, we all need to support each other and keep playing cricket where we can around the world. So yeah, very good signs that Pakistan hosted that tour successfully. Well, that is it for this week's Stumped. My thanks to Geoff Lemon and to Charu Sharma, and to you for listening. Make sure you join us again next time for more cricketing chat. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service, in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.